Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, wherever you're dialing in. Appreciate you dialing in for another one of our videos. As always, appreciate it very much. This video, we're looking at the Anakites, the descendants of Anak listed in Deuteronomy and then in Joshua. Again, kind of give an idea of this because it is coming up in our first series, which is Numbers and Deuteronomy. And so it's a good idea to go and take a pause and look and see who we're talking about when we look at the grand scheme of things with our series. So when I'm looking at who these people are, remember I'm painting with a very broad stroke. I'm using what details that are known to us. Sometimes we have a lot of information and sometimes we don't have enough information or little or nothing at all. In this case, the only thing we have is pretty much the Bible. Okay. So anything beyond that, for the most part, is going to be speculation. But we're going to talk briefly about the Anakites as they relate to the Bible and the in Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Joshua. So looking at it, they were considered a formidable race of giant warlike people, as we see in Deuteronomy. They occupied the lands of southern Israel near Hebron before the arrival of the Israelites. They traced their lineage back to Anak, the son of Arba. We see that in Joshua, who had at that time regarded as the greatest man among the Anakim, which is the descendant, Anakites. So where does that name come from? For the most part, it means long-necked or tall. So these people are obviously taller than usual, okay, just by their name alone. And the Hebrews thought that they were descendants of the Nephilim, okay? And of course, that goes back to Genesis. And that was a powerful race of people before the flood. So that's what they thought of. Well, how does all this come into being? Well, let's stop and look at what happens when we look at Deuteronomy and Numbers, where, Moses sent out 12 spies to the new land, the promised land, Canaan, and had the spies go out, and they had a journey that they went out to kind of spy on the land and come back with some information. And Moses sent them out there with specific instructions. Not just about the food, but the terrain, the people, what they lived in, the cities, fortifications, what the people were like, all this stuff. And of course, the 12 spies came back at the appointed time. And one of the issues, of course, was the Anakites. And the Anakites were giants. It scared the spies. Of the 12 spies, only 2, Caleb and Joshua, were the ones that said, you know what, despite that, let's go in and seize the land God had promised to us. The other 10 were frightful, and they did not want to go in. They said, no, those men are big, they're warlike, they're intimidating, we're afraid of them, forget it. And that really made God mad, and he decided at that time that generation didn't deserve the promised land. So, but anyway, that was the thing. The Israelites, that fear, they pretty much said that we were mere grasshoppers in their sight. Well, a grasshopper is pretty small compared to a giant. The people were thinking these were huge individuals. So, but again, it was, Moses extorted them and said, you don't need to be afraid of these people. God will provide. God will have our back. Nonetheless, they would do it. As a result, God became angry and said, okay, spend your time in the desert, and this generation will die off, and the next generation, I'll use them to serve the purpose of the land. So because of their fear of the Anakites, they missed out on their inheritance for a generation. So they spent 40 years in the wilderness after that. So now after that generation died off, Joshua takes control, and Joshua goes in under God's guidance and leadership, conquers a land, and he drives out the Anakin from the hill country, and then Caleb drove out of the Hebron completely. So the next generations didn't seem to have be afraid of them. So drove them out, and we see that listed in Joshua 11:22. Now, many scholars speculate that Goliath was of Gath was a descendant of the Anakim. Um, with his encounter with David, but we don't have anything that reputable that says this is exactly what it is. But that could be a possibility. We don't know for sure. But again, many Bible scholars link that. It would probably make sense. But okay, so what are they not? Um, from what I understand or what we know, they're not descendants of the Nephilim. And now the Israelite people thought that because of their size, okay, and how big and how they were giants, so to speak. So they grasped back to the thing that probably scared them the most, which was the tales and the stories of Genesis. But there's no concrete evidence that the Anakites were descendants of Nephilim. There's no documentation. There's no proof, credible source of that. And if we sit there and say, yeah, they were descendants of the Nephilim, then we have to cast doubt on the purpose of the flood, right? Because the flood, what was the result of that? It was because of the wickedness in the land, okay? And the Nephilim were an offspring of that wickedness. And God wiped out that wickedness and started over with Noah and Noah's family and all the animals on the ark. So to sit there and say that the Anakites were descendants of what God wiped out means that God made a mistake, or you see what I'm saying? And so we can't take that path. Either we believe in what is being said, which is God wiped out life on earth except for what was in the ark, and the Anakites were just a formidable, warlike, taller than usual people, and that's it. There's no linkage that links them to the legends of the Nephilim. So it's just that's the way I look at it. The flood wiped them out, except Noah and his family. So now they're not angels or any celestial beings, as some New Age scholars or esoteric readings outside of the Bible. Of course, a lot of what you read outside the Bible that deals with spirituality, New Age, magic, and all that, you have to take with a huge block of salt, because most of the time they're not on a reliable source, or they have questionable sources, and they pick it from something that they can't produce. Okay, so again, there's nowhere listing as far as historical or in the Bible that these people were anything supernatural at all. So now, as far as if you and I are looking at this and we're looking at how do we apply in our lives today, obviously this is a historical context to who these people are. The people that Joshua would conquer, and the land that they would take, and that God would establish for his people and for the kingdom of Israel. Those people we don't have a lot of record of. We just don't. For the most part, the Israelites wiped out those clans predominantly, not all of them like God had told them to, but a majority, to where we know them for the most part. They're very much just footnotes in history, and we don't have a lot of information on them. Okay, they're mentioned in the Bible because the Bible can also be a historical source of information for us. Now, as far as if I'm looking at some kind of biblical study, I think that the lesson for us is how we approach it in regards to the manner that the Israelites did. We look at the giants in our lives. We look at the challenges and the obstacles in our lives that we think are bigger than us, and we tend to shy away from taking those chances. Right? We shy away from the new jobs and the new trust and the new things that we got to do, the moving out and moving into a new location, all that stuff. The giants, facing your giants in your life is similar. Okay, we don't rely necessarily on our own thinking. If we did, we would never we would never move forward. We rely on God to back us up to face those giants in our lives and trust God to take care of us during that process. And I think that's the most important lesson that we can get from the Anakites, and nothing more than that. Okay? Thank you for watching. I appreciate you dialing in for another one of our videos. Yeah, it's short and there's not a lot to it, but guess what? There's not a lot to begin with. We know what they are and we know what they're not. And that's the most important thing. As always, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Therefore, every time we post a video, you'll be notified when those videos become available. And we'd love to have you here at Webb Baptist as our honored guest. If you can, come on down, be a part of what we got going on here. We'd love to have you here at Webb Baptist. If you can't make it to Webb Baptist, by all means, find you a Bible-based church wherever you're at and get plugged in and find out what God has in store for you. I guarantee He has something in store for you. You'll be a blessing to that church family, and they will be a blessing to you. You may be facing some giants today in your lives, something that is keeping you from moving forward, something that is scaring you, something that is keeping you in place. And God is standing there saying, let's go forward and let's conquer those giants together. God's got your back. You just got to trust Him. Okay? Until next time, take care. God bless.